Well, welcome to another session. Today I will be uh, focusing on the alternative approach or alternative approaches to estimating what a property is worth. In the prior session, I gave an overall overview on the concept of intrinsic valuation. And I used a methodology called the DCF method, the discounted cash flow method. And I explained how the principle works with this methodology. And I also explained its limitations and its advantages. Um, Today, I'm going to focus on the alternative way that you can estimate what a property is worth. And that is through a process that we call a relative pricing. But before I move forward, let me perhaps pose a question to you. Let's just say that you were based in the northern part of the country. Let's use a particular part of England. Let's say you're in Newcastle, and you're walking past a high street and you come across a property agent, and you notice that there is a for sale sign at their office. The for sale sign is for a house. It's a 4-bedroom house. It's located in, say, Gateshead in Newcastle. I know both are not necessarily the same, but I think for the purpose of understanding, we'll just assume, rather than me say Tyne and Ware, let's say Gateshead. But the agent's office is in Newcastle, the property is in Gateshead. Here's a question. Based on what I explained in the prior session, using the intrinsic valuation approach and the DCF methodology, does it seem likely that the agent in Newcastle, let's assume her name is Anna, does it seem likely that Anna and her colleagues, let's say Josh and Sam, does it seem likely that they all sat down together in an office meeting and pulled out their calculators, pulled out their spreadsheets, and said, we have a 4-bedroom property for sale. Let's all sit down and estimate the intrinsic value of the property so that we know what price to sell the property for, or what price to advertise the property for. Now, I'm sure you would agree that was probably not what happened. In the marketplace, most decisions are made on what I call a relative basis, not an absolute basis. When you use the DCF approach, or when you estimate the intrinsic value, you are trying to estimate the absolute on an estimated basis. You're trying to understand what is the value of the property on an absolute basis. But the relative pricing approach focuses on the relative basis. This means that Anna, Sam, and Josh, they probably looked at their prior inventory. They looked at their books, and they simply asked the question, have we sold any property on that same street? Or have we sold any property in that same neighborhood? That's the first question. The second question is, have other agents sold any similar properties in on the same street and in the same neighborhood. With this question, there is an answer. The answer usually would be yes, because properties would have been sold in the neighborhood, whether in the immediate historical context, or whether that be 5, 10 years prior. And so what Anna and Sam and Josh would likely do is they would look at the sales data of comparable properties, and then what they simply do is they build off that number. They start with the base. They might say a property sold similar to this property that we have last week for £300,000, and therefore we'll use £300,000 as the base. And then they make adjustments to that price so that it's more reflective of the property they have, so that whatever differences in architecture, interior decor, finishes, floor area, land size, etc., so that all of these unique differences are adjusted. And so what might happen is that the property price might be set at 325,000. What I have just done is what Anna, Josh, and Sam would have done. We call that relative pricing, or also called comparable sales. And that is the focus that I will try to stay on in this session. You notice that this approach is simple, it's quick, and here is something that perhaps is one of the most important reasons why it's used. Over the last few decades, it has been shown to be a reliable way by which property agents can sell properties. There is an alternative approach to this. I've talked about the comparable sales, which is where you compare one property to another. There is another aspect, so this is what we call the comparable sales. There is another aspect to the relative pricing. This approach is also used, but this approach is called the replacement cost approach. Replacement cost. And in this case, again, Anna, Josh, Sam will not use this approach. On the other hand, if you had a company, and this company was, let's say, a large real estate developer, and let's say they have maybe 200 million pounds of assets under management. These are professionals. If this particular company was looking to buy this building, not necessarily for the building itself, but maybe because the property is located on a land which they find very attractive, and maybe they have plans to knock this building down and maybe construct a block of flats containing about 150 apartments. The way this company, this real estate company, would estimate what the property or the land is worth will be very different to the way Anna, Sam, and Josh carried out their estimation. The company will very likely use the replacement cost approach. And the way the replacement cost approach works is that it simply tries to answer a simple question. Sorry for using the word twice. The question is, what would it cost me to reproduce a similar property today, including the land value and whatever lost rental income that would have been foregone during the period of construction. Again, the replacement cost approach seeks to answer a simple question. What would it cost to reproduce a similar property today, including the land cost, the lost rental income during the period of construction, and then what adjustments will be needed to account for the fact that the building that I would have reconstructed would be brand new. This is brand new. Everything is new. The structure is new, the services are new, the fittings are new. Whereas the building that is on the market for sale is old. You cannot compare a new building with or against an old building. So what we do is you assume that there's been a number of years of use of the old building, and at some point this building was new. It was constructed and then it was used, and therefore as part of the use you had what we call depreciation. I'm going to cover different forms of depreciation: economic, functional, and accounting depreciation. Don't get bothered or bogged down in all of these variations. What we do know is that by use, the building over time, if not maintained, starts to depreciate and deteriorate. We simply call that depreciation. Therefore, in order to estimate what the property would cost to reconstruct, we follow a simple formula, very simple. We take the land value, we add to the land value the building construction cost, we make allowances for the fact that land does not depreciate, so there will be zero depreciation, but the structure and the services do depreciate, and therefore we do 1 minus depreciation allowance, and then we add back the lost, what we call the unearned cash flow, and that is the replacement cost for this property. In this case, this property is a freehold. However, it's a freehold. If the property was a leasehold, then this formula would also have to increase, because there will be a cost to buy back the freehold, in which case we subtract LEC, leasehold, the enfranchisement cost. Again, same formula, but for leasehold buildings, we include an extra part. That is the replacement cost approach. Now, what you'd find is that this relative pricing methodology relies on the use of a number of consensus data or benchmarks. Let's go back to Anna, Josh, Sam. One of the ways that Anna would do the comparison would be to say, well, we have a property that's sold for 300,000. The property is 200 square meters. Therefore, this property compared to the other property sold for £1,500 per square meter, per meter square. So really, this 1,500 per square meter becomes the benchmark. We call this price per meter square. This then becomes a metric that you use for comparability. So if the property Anna was looking to sell was 300 square meters, she would then say, on a per square meter basis, all I have to do is multiply 300 by 1.5, and that should give me 450,000. Now, it doesn't always work like this, but it generally works like this. Keep that in mind. And the reason I say it doesn't work like this always is there is a limit to how much you can make or you can sell a 2-bedroom apartment for. You have limits. You have a 3-bedroom, you have a 1-bedroom, you have a 2-bedroom. If this property, I know this is a 4-bedroom, but let's just say if this was a 2-bedroom property. Now let's stick to the 4-bedroom so you don't get confused. If this is a 4-bedroom property and it was 200 square meters, 4-bedroom. Typically, you might find that 4-bedroom properties have a range of, say, between 150 to 250. And then 5 bedrooms might go from between, say, 300 to 400. This is a relatively very, very large house. Very, very unusual. The size is huge. Most buildings are not this large. Just keep that in mind. Except these are tall, Victorian, Edwardian, Georgian, or other period buildings. But usually most homes are not this large, especially around the inner city areas. The point I'm making is, if the property they're looking to sell is 300 square meters, you might find that the 300 square meters falls within the 5-bedroom range. So the agent would want to be careful because they cannot ask the same price for a 5-bedroom house as they are for a 4-bedroom. What tends to happen is that it then makes the property unattractive to sell. So the agent might actually, rather than put it down as 450, they might put it down as 429, just to ensure that they're not putting the property under the same comparable price as a 5-bedroom. Just keep that in mind, because most people would say, well, if I can get a 5-bedroom for 450, why would I pay the same price for a 4-bedroom, even if both have the same size and both were of similar architecture? It then becomes a case of utility, that someone can be proud and say, I have a 5-bedroom house. Anyway, I digress. My apologies. Let's come back. The relative pricing approach relies on a consensus, like a metric. And what that means is whenever you see a benchmark being used in analyzing what the property is worth, you should never call that approach valuation. Instead, you should call it pricing. Whenever you have a metric being used, price per meter square, or construction cost per meter square, you cannot call that valuation. You should call that pricing, usually. And it's usually more applicable to price per meter square. Construction cost per meter square can be treated slightly with exception, but the same principle applies. If you're buying a plot of land, the land is priced in acre or hectares. That is a pricing. That is not valuation, because you're saying the land is £200 per acre. Similarly, the building itself, the construction cost would be, say, £3,000 per square meter, something like that. All of those examples are using benchmarks, and therefore we call them pricing. And what this means is that suddenly you can see there is there is a slight difference between valuation and pricing. In either of the two examples that I've used today, the comparable sales and the replacement cost, you would notice that I'm not using explicit or the unique fundamental attributes of the property. I'm not using any of that to determine the value. The fundamental properties would have been the cash flow, the growth in cash flow, and the risks associated with the property. I am not using any of these items. Instead, I'm using what I call imputed or implicit information. And these are imputed, implicit, market determined factors on a relative basis. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to say something perhaps that might be somewhat surprising to you. Property sales agents, Anna, Sam, Josh, surveyors, people who come and carry out inspections on the property on your behalf, and most property buyers do not value properties, they price properties. And what you're going to learn from one of the things you will learn from this series is how to separate yourself from that pack. Sales agents, surveyors, and most property buyers cannot estimate, do not have the knowledge needed to estimate the intrinsic value of a property. And so what they tend to do is they use the comparable sales approach. They compare one property with another, and that serves as a guide to estimating what they believe the fair market price will be. Now, the question is, what is fair market price? And the fair market price is simply the price that a willing buyer and a willing seller have agreed to transact at in the marketplace. This price obviously depends on so many factors: demand, supply, local market factors, the appetite for risk on the investor's part, easy access to credit, easy access to loans from banks and lenders. All of these factors affect what that price will be, which means that by default, the pricing approach relies heavily on the cycle of the market. If the market is high in its cycle, prices will be high. If the market is low in its cycle, prices will be low. If the market is upwards in its cycle, prices will be fair. If the market is downwards in its cycle, prices will be fair, subject to the intrinsic value of the property. So keep that in mind. So with that said, the question would be, when is the best time to use the comparable sales or the replacement cost approach? The answer is simple. In order for you to use this approach, it's best to ensure that you have identical properties, or you have a group of comparable properties to the one you have in mind. And they have to be comparable and located in a similar geographical area. Same street, adjacent street, or the same borough. Keep that in mind. That's the first. The second thing is that there has to be a common measure across all of those properties. Common measure or metric. Price per floor area, construction cost, or the land value cost. All of these are common metrics that could be used. And number three, there has to be a way for you to make adjustments for whatever unique difference exists between the properties, so that you're not comparing two buildings that are not similar, because most buildings are not similar, and therefore sometimes you might be using the right metric but you haven't made adjustments for the fact that the property that you have in mind does have some unique attributes. So you need a way of controlling for any differences that exist. Those differences could be, for example, other properties do not have a garden, but your property has a garden. Other properties have a swimming pool, yours does not have a swimming pool. Other properties have additional bedrooms. Others are 5-bedroom houses, yours is a 4-bedroom house. Your property has a garage, or others' properties do not have. There has to be a way for you to make those sorts of corrections. Now, in principle, that's it. It has its advantages. It also has its disadvantages. These two methodologies. One of the disadvantages of the relative pricing approach is that it assumes that the market is correct. So the metric you're using, it generally assumes that that is the correct metric, because it doesn't rely on explicit assumptions. And therefore, whenever there are errors in the marketplace from a pricing perspective, those errors will be translated, and they'll be made known in your estimation. In any case, the comparable cost approach, sales approach, is probably best suited whenever you have a large number of similar properties in the market. And it's usually more suitable for buyers who have a short time frame, short time horizon, and who have a unique way of reading the market so that they can see whether there are any mispricing in the market or overpricing in the market. The replacement cost approach, on the other hand, is for more sophisticated investors, more technically astute investors, those who understand local building construction codes, the building industry, they know building costs, they understand land value prices, they understand property development. It is a more superior way of both of them. The replacement cost is a more superior approach, and it's a better alternative to the comparable sales approach. It's also a useful alternative to the intrinsic value methodology for specific types of properties. Keep that in mind. Now, in the short time that we have left, let me summarize by saying this. There are two ways of valuing a property. You can value a property based on its intrinsic value. You can also estimate what the property is worth based on its relative pricing. That usually can be done using a comparable sales approach or a replacement cost approach. The comparable sales approach means you're relying on other people, what people have paid for other properties in the past. The replacement cost approach is more technically better because it's more astute, and it requires some initial thought on how a property is constructed, what it costs to construct the property, what it costs to buy the land, and any depreciation the property has accrued over its lifetime. You can use any of these approaches. I am not suggesting that one approach is superior to the other. I believe, however, that you should always buy properties for less than their worth. How you achieve this process is up to you. I have a preference. I have a preferred approach. My preferred approach is to ensure that you apply the intrinsic valuation process. But in any case, my preference has always been tailored to my financial disposition, my character, my abilities, my goals, and my philosophy. You do not have to subscribe to my approach, but it's important for you to know what approach is right for you. And that, once you've established that, you can choose a methodology that works for you. Now, with that, I'm going to stop. And in the next session, we will begin the initial calculation process for each of these options. And this is where I think you're going to start to find this series to be quite interesting. We're going to start doing numbers. And I'll try to make them easy to follow, easy to remember, and easy to come back to. Now, I hope that's been useful. All right.